Hi, it's Colin Coward. I started The Volume to bring you some of the most authentic voices in sports. While you're here, make sure you hit subscribe. Thanks.
Tiger is a golfing genius. So to me, if his game is just like 85, 90%, his head's in the right spot, he knows this course, it would not shock me if he's just in the mix. Now, do I think he's going to win? I don't. Does that mean I didn't sprinkle $25 on him just because if he does, you better believe I got a piece of the action? I did. Okay, well, we're recording this. We had to record this week before because he's just headed to, we did the math, 15, 16. He's been to a lot of these. It's called Augusta National, the Masters. It's safe to say the biggest event of the sport, at least domestically for us in America, the Masters. I know we have a U.S. Open, but I would say the Masters is bigger from a just common fan standpoint, kind of cuts through the noise. Jason Sobel, Mr. Golf, Sirius XM, Monday through Wednesday, 2 to 4 Eastern, Links and Locks, Action Network podcast. And you can find him on Twitter. He's got so many previews, probably rocking and rolling if you're looking Monday or Tuesday, getting ready for Augusta. And does it get any better than this week, Sobel, as a golf fan, but really as a sports fan? I mean, this is one of the bigger events, non-football, on the sports calendar of the year.
It's massive. And so, it takes me a few weeks. I start writing preview stuff and start working on my content weeks ahead of time, then make that drive the Sunday before to Augusta National and be able to be on the grounds the entire time. I'm going to be throughout the week doing not just my own show, Hitting the Green on Masters Radio, but I'm going to be doing some hits for the pregame show. I'm going to be doing post-round interviews, one-on-ones with players after they come in following their rounds. And I'm going to be hosting the post-game show with Drew Stoltz on Masters Radio every single night after play ends, which is just, at some point I kind of pinch myself and go, this is ridiculous. Really? Like, did I win a lottery or something? It's crazy.
You've been out there and around. Obviously Tiger is the premier guy of the last, 2.5 decades, but just the Rorys, the JTs, the Spieths, it feels like they know, like walking onto the grounds. It's weird to talk about Phil, but a couple years ago when he was driving down Magnolia Lane, and he was this back when he was really popular, on social media and the videos. And it feels like these guys know that they're kind of, when they walk on the hollowed ground and their juices, like, is their focus, does it feel different when you see them at the Waste Management or even Memorial or some of the bigger non-majors?
If you had only been to a Masters, I know people say, kind of the other way around. Hey, I've been to regular events, and if I go to a Masters, wow, I see the palpable difference in it. If you had only been to the Masters and then went to a regular PGA Tour event, you go, whoa, where's the intensity? Don't these guys care? Like, what's going on here? Yeah, they care at those ones, but they really care at the Masters. You can tell it's just ratcheted up a handful of notches, and these guys are all working on their games. This is what they want to peak for. And you're right, this is the biggest. And there might be a few players out there who say, the Open Championship is the big one for me. It's the oldest, and I'd rather win a claret jug, or maybe a US Open. It's the most democratic golf tournament in the world, and for that reason, I want to win that one. For the most part, though, I would say it's 80 to 90% of the pros out there would take a green jacket over anything. This is the pinnacle of achievement in our sport, and all the best players are going after it. There's a reason why in the last 12 years, we haven't had a player outside the top 30 in the world ranking win the Masters, because the cream of the crop tends to rise at this event. They tend to climb the leaderboard. They know how important, how relevant it is at this one this week.
Well, we don't know how he finished at the Valero when we're recording this. Obviously, he won it last year, but a fan favorite, and I think he's kind of the modern day Phil, is Jordan. And, he just plays well here, regardless how he's coming in. Is he a guy, not just from a gambling standpoint, but just as a golf standpoint, that you take seriously when this thing kicks off, just because regardless how his form is, he just knows this place so well and he's so comfortable out there that he can win it?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought last year at the Valero Texas Open, it was a little bit different. He started trending in the right direction. We'd seen it in Phoenix during that third round, I think 61 or 62. And we saw him moving in the right direction, but he hadn't won in 4 years. And so we kind of thought he kind of needs a win. He can't just show up at Augusta and hope to win for the first time in 4 years. And so he got the win last year, and he played really well when he got to the Masters. This year is a little bit different. I don't feel like he needs that real big triumph going into it. He's played well this year. It's not over the top great. It's not terrible. It's just sort of, it's pretty well. But again, Jordan Spieth is a type that doesn't really measure himself until he gets to the major championships anyway. And yeah, I expect it to be a really good week for him, just because it's always a good week for him at Augusta National. He figured something out early, and most players aren't able to do this. We know that experience plays a major factor, although I will say, I think experience is a little bit overrated on this golf course. That's sort of the old notion 15, 20 years ago. Hey, you've got to have experience here. And there's only a few guys who jump in and just start finding success right away. I think what we're going to find is more often than not, these guys in their 20s who are coming up now as some of the better players in the game, these guys are going to find some success at Augusta National. Jordan Spieth has sort of been the leader in this current era of showing them, hey, it's possible. You can show up here your first time, find success, and then win not long afterwards. And that's what he's done. I expect another good one from him this week.
Yeah, before we dive into some of the guys in the 20s, a guy in his early 30s who's, he wins this thing, he'd have the career Grand Slam, and it's a guy that we always talk about. I mean, he's one of the most famous players in the history of the game, is Rory McIlroy. Is he a guy that you have any confidence coming in to the Masters in 2022, or is it ever going to happen? Because you could never say never, but it does feel like just kind of weird for him at this event, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, at some point now he's trying to change it up, and you played the Valero Texas Open, and okay, I like that. It's not just I'm going to bang my head against the wall until something different happens. It's, hey, well, let me try something new. I'm going to play the week before the Masters. I don't know, maybe that works. And so I'd like to see it happen for Rory. I think Rory can go from not having won a major in 8 years. It's amazing. It's been almost 8 full years since Rory's won a major. He can go from the narrative of what's wrong with Rory? Why can't Rory win? How come he hasn't won a major to, and this was brought up to me the other day, if he wins this coming week at Augusta National, he might be the best European player of all time. I mean, he's going to have the career Grand Slam, just the 6th player ever to do it. And he can completely change that narrative about what we say when we talk about Rory McIlroy. That said, boy, there's a lot of scar tissue there for him. And I just, am I confident in Rory? Look, I'm always pretty confident in Rory. I always think that he can play well. He's just not at the top of my list right now.
Okay, let's dive into the favorites. And speaking of Europeans, he got the monkey off his back last year. He won a major, Jon Rahm. He was the number 1 player in the world until Scottie Scheffler went on a Tiger-like 40-day stretch. But Jon Rahm, he's still the betting favorite at, 9, 10 to 1, which, as we talked earlier in the season, it was getting outrageous for a guy that wasn't winning that much, 6, 7 to 1. So it's come back to earth a little bit. I was on him huge at the Players. Hard really to take much. That was a weird event, right, with the weather. But the short game just looks a little off to me, for a guy that strikes the ball as well as anyone. Do you have any faith Jon Rahm at that number can win the major, can win the Masters?
The putter has not been great, and he needs to figure out his putting stroke, and I'm not sure he can do that this quickly. That said, I will say the one thing that John's got going in his favor right now, we all know he's a hot-tempered guy. He gets fired up. I've heard from players who play small money games with him back home in Scottsdale that if he loses, he's throwing clubs and he's cursing, he's getting mad about stuff. It's not just in a major championship. I mean, this is a guy who runs hot on a regular basis. Maybe the best thing for Rahm was getting eclipsed on the world ranking just last week by Scottie Scheffler, who won the match play and moved into number 1 in the world. I wonder if Rahm, not that he was getting complacent whatsoever, but I wonder if Rahm just needed to kind of get that edge back a little bit, to have people say, hey, you know what? You ain't number 1 anymore. Now you're number 2. How's that feel? And maybe just, even if he's not hearing that from the outside, even that's just an internal voice telling him that, maybe it just fires him up a little bit more to kind of, go out there and play some better golf. But yeah, he's been good. Look, I still think he's, if you had a draft, you line him up right now, who's the best player in the world? I still take Jon Rahm over Scottie Scheffler or anybody else. But yeah, he's got to start making some putts. And I don't know that Augusta National is the place where you start making some putts.
My pick to win the major, or win the Masters, and his second major, which is crazy because he feels like he's won more than one major, but he struggled in majors. And he struggled at the Masters, and that's Justin Thomas. But he has a new running mate named Bones, who's been on the bag for a guy that's won this tournament a few times. And You guys that are deep in the game always talk about the nuances of this course. The guys, that's what Tiger and Phil kind of hang their hat on, and why they can compete at older, as they get older, because they know this place so well. Now, Justin's played here a lot, but adding Bones feels like, does this take him over the edge? And I know he struck the ball as well as anyone this year. His putter's been a little hit or miss, like John Rahm, but I love him this week, Sobel, at 12, 13 to 1. Talk me off that ledge.
No, I can't. I really like JT as well. He's not quite at the top of my list. He's certainly within the top 5, though. I would venture to say that with Bones by his side, JT will he will know a few more things about Augusta National by the time he tees off Thursday than he knows right now as we're speaking. He's going to learn some things from Bones. And look, even for guys at the highest level, even the most subtle little detail here and there can really help a guy out. So I do think that JT is a very viable candidate. I don't have necessarily a negative against JT other than just it's been a long time since he won. It's been over a year now since he's won a golf tournament. That's way too long for a guy who has his talent level. I just wonder if he gets under the gun and he presses so much that it hurts him a little bit. But that said, that's a very, very small complaint right there. Very small little dose of pessimism towards Justin Thomas, because I like everything else about him going into this week.
It's weird. We've talked about a bunch of names. We haven't even mentioned the number 1 player in the world.
Yeah.
Now, he's won 3 times. I mean, which feels like a Tiger-like heater, right? That you just don't see in modern day golf, winning that many, especially, I mean, these weren't just some random tournaments in Puerto Rico. I mean, these were fields that were tough, big time golf tournaments that have been won by some of the best in the history of the game. But my pushback on not betting Scottie Scheffler, at least as to win, and I bet these odds, you probably know better than me. I mean, I see 16 to 1. What do you think it was at the beginning of the season for Scottie Scheffler to win the Masters? 35 to 1, 40 to 1?
At least, yeah.
So they've been cut in half probably in the last several weeks. It's hard to say he doesn't have a legit chance because no one's playing better than him right now, and he's played only there a couple times, but he's had, some success for a younger player. What are your thoughts on Scottie Scheffler heading into the Masters?
Yeah, you know what they say about the stock market? Past performance is not indicative of future success. And so I think a lot of people right now are saying Scottie Scheffler, he's won 3 of his last 5 starts. The guy can't lose. Number 1 in the world. I'm going to take him for the Masters. Look, I'm not saying it's a bad play by any means. I'm not saying, this is not some anti-Scottie Scheffler rant by any means. At some point, it's just, look, there's so many good players. You're only going to win so many events. If your name isn't Tiger Woods and the year isn't 2000, you're not going to win every single time you tee it up. And so I just wonder, look, it's not a knock on Scottie. I still think he's a great player. He's won 3 times. He's just not going to win 9 times in 4 majors this year. It's just things don't work out that way. And so, he might rather trade the API and the match play victories for a green jacket instead, but it's just not how it works. And so I tend to look at Scottie and say he's maybe peaked a little bit too early. The game's best players try to peak 4 times a year. I've asked them about it for years. Best answer I ever got was from Jason Day, who literally looked at me, threw his hands up, and just kind of shrugged and goes, I don't know how I try to peak 4 times a year. It's not like I'm trying to play worse 2 weeks ahead of time so that I can play better when I get to Augusta. But he's kind of Scottie Scheffler, I feel like has sort of played some of his better golf. And again, maybe it means nothing, but the law of averages just kind of tells us that at some point he's going to stop winning, isn't he?
Yeah, you would think. One of my favorite GIFs on the internet streets is when the Undertaker, he comes out of the casket and he's alive again. And I felt watching the match play, 2 guys that have a combined 6 majors. They've both been number 1 in the world, and they were good friends a couple years ago. It feels like their friendship isn't quite the same.
Maybe not.
In Brooks Koepka and Dustin Johnson, but a couple Florida guys that obviously when they're on can beat anyone ever, right? I mean, they are as good as it gets. Looking at those 2 specific players, Dustin Johnson and Brooks Koepka, who has more win equity coming in to this Masters?
John, for a few years after he won the 2017, was it the PGA, I believe, PGA or US Open, the first one, PGA. After he won 2 in 2018, I looked at it and I said, I'm not buying into this whole narrative that Brooks Koepka can essentially just show up to a major championship, flip the switch and say, hey, look at me. I'm the best player in the world now. I wasn't buying it. I finally started to buy in. I finally just started to buy into, you know what? Brooks is that good. He doesn't mean he's not trying to play well at other events, but he might give it 90% at other events, then give it 110 at the majors and just step it up a few notches. And so I'm all over Brooks Koepka this week. He's my favorite outright play on the board. I do think that, look, he understands how to win major championships. He's scared of nothing. He plays with a chip on his shoulder. There's no weakness in his game. Look, he drives it a long way. He's a great ball striker. He's an underrated putter. He's really good with the flat stick in his hands. He's contended at Augusta National in the past. He's healthy now. He's confident now. He's played well. He's put up some decent performances, really, other than his 2019 major win. This is the best he's played before any potential major championship title. And so I look at all those things, put them all together. I said, there's no reason not to play Brooks Koepka this week.
One thing I will say about DJ, now granted, it was Sunday at the Players, not much. He was well out of it. I think he shot 63. And then at the match play, you could just tell, I wouldn't say he's got all of his swag back, but it looked a little bit more like the DJ we knew from 17 and 18 that was the best player in the world. So to me, both those guys, I could see them both, just like a couple years ago when Tiger won, they were both there. It would not shock me at all if they're both in the top 5 coming into the back 9. Another name, I mean, this guy's just a top 5 machine. When Tiger won it, he was the guy sitting next to him in the Mike Gundy orange. And I have a wager on Victor Hovland at 18-1. I actually got him at 22-1. It's been moving up because he's been playing so well. He can't chip, but luckily he just hits fairways and greens. He might can avoid that. Now, historically, you know better than me, it feels like you cannot win Augusta if your short game's a little off. It's too difficult. What do you think about Victor Hovland? Is chipping, is that too much to overcome to win this tournament? I think we're all confident he can be top 10 with his eyes closed in any major right now, but to win a major.
In a word, yes. You don't find top 10 players, the elite level players, with a glaring weakness in their games right now. I mean, the only other guy I can really compare to Hovland is Will Zalatoris, who's not in the top 10. He's close, but Will Zalatoris was struggling with his putter and has struggled with his putter for so long. Looked really good at the match play. It looks like he's turned things around until Victor Hovland turned things around with the wedge from around the greens. I just don't see him showing up at Augusta National. He's going to have to hit 72 greens this week for him to have a serious chance of contending. And so, at some point, is he going to win a major? Absolutely. At some point, is he going to figure out how to chip better from around the greens? Absolutely. Is it going to be this week? Again, I just don't think you turn right from Washington Road onto Magnolia Lane and all of a sudden you go, now I got it. All right, I figured it out. I know how to chip now. If you've got a weakness, Augusta National is just going to show off and magnify that weakness. And I think that's going to be the issue for Victor Hovland for this one.
Is there any of the top dogs? I mean, we haven't mentioned Morikawa, Cantlay, any of the top dogs that we haven't talked about that, you're intrigued by or want a little action on?
Cantlay is certainly a guy. I've had 3 futures just for a couple of weeks. I like to wait on this stuff, but Koepka I mentioned. Yeah, Brooks Koepka I mentioned. I really like Brooks Koepka. Patrick Cantlay is the guy who, if you had asked me 2 or 3 months ago, and people were, trust me, asking me 2 or 3 months ago who I like to win the Masters, it was Patrick Cantlay. Came out of the gates 2022 playing really well. 4 finishes between 2nd and 9th place. So 4 top 10s to start. Since then, a 33rd place finish at Riviera, which should suit him as well as any golf course in the world. Missed the cut at the Players. He was on the right side of the draw, but doesn't tend to play his best golf in Florida anyway. And then played okay at the match play, didn't advance out of his group. None of those individually are things I look at and say, well, that's not good for Cantlay. But you put them all together and you say he hasn't played his best golf. Essentially, what it's done for me is dropped him from the top of my list down to maybe 2nd or 3rd on my list. I still really like Patrick Cantlay. There are 13 players who are 20-1 or shorter, which is unbelievable. How are we supposed to make money doing this stuff? I mean, the amount of short odds. I love parity in the game of golf, but parity has also brought so many guys close to the top of the odds board that it makes it really difficult. So when looking for a bargain, there just aren't a whole lot of bargains out there. One guy that I find a bargain on is a guy who was in the top 10. He's just outside the top 10 right now. Sam Burns at 40-1. I'm telling you, the only thing separating him from being 20-1 instead of 40-1 is the fact that he has yet to play in a single Masters. We all know the last guy to win in his Masters debut was Fuzzy Zoeller back in 1979. That said, doesn't mean it can't happen. I think Sam Burns is good enough to at least give it a run. At 40-1, I'll take a shot on him.
I had a group which I considered long shots, 35 to 45 range. It was Shane Lowry, Daniel Berger, Louis, and Burns. If you were ranking those, Burns would be your guy of that group.
Yeah, I think he's that good. And like I said earlier, experience, I think, tends to get overvalued just a little bit. I feel like it's an older notion that, 10, 15, 20 years ago, we might have looked at the guys, hey, he's playing his 8th, 9th, 10th Masters. He's finally figured it out. I think these guys are starting to learn. The learning curve is a little quicker when they're getting out there. And so I expect some younger players. Look, if Will Zalatoris finished second last year, there's no reason Sam Burns can't make a run at it this year.
In that group, Lowry, Berger, Louis, maybe not to win, but if you were going to take a top 10 out of one of those three, any of them? Do you buy into the notion of, obviously some of those guys play a cut, that it's a drawer's course for a right-handed guy?
A little bit. Yeah, I think so. I think there's something to that. Berger certainly plays that cut a little bit. I've been waiting for Berger. I keep getting Berger wrong on the weeks that I like him. He doesn't necessarily show up, although I had him at the Players Championship. I think he was one of my favorite plays that week. It just kind of came up a little bit short. Shane Lowry is intriguing to me. I just don't know that he's got what it takes to be there down the stretch, seriously in contention to win this thing. But yeah, I could go for a Lowry top 10. I'm going to have my rankings out at the Action Network, the entire field. I could see each of those three guys being somewhere in the teens for me. So, maybe not a great top 10 bet, but all of them as top 20 bets. Sure. I'm okay with that.
How about the group of guys, former champions, from Hideki to Bubba to Sergio to Patrick Reed to Adam Scott, kind of that group of guys that, obviously Hideki recently won. I know he's banged up a little bit right now, but guys that you'd say a little past their prime, a little older, not Patrick, who's just playing bad, but like the Adam Scott, Sergios, any of that group that would maybe not to win it, but wouldn't shock you if they're just in the mix come the weekend?
Without having that whole list in front of me, so I'm just going to take the names.
Just kind of the big name, 4 or 5 guys.
I'll go with Adam Scott. Adam Scott's obviously a classic ball striker. We all wish we had a swing that looked anything close to Adam Scott's swing. We know how good he is from tee to green. He's become a pretty good putter.
Yeah.
The guy can roll it. He's got that longer putter, switch back and forth every once in a while. But Adam Scott got this reputation for this first 15, 18 years as a professional that he can't make any putts. He's actually a pretty good putter these days. And so combined with the fact that he knows Augusta National, he knows these greens, he's won in the past. Yeah, Adam isn't a guy that's been contending for titles on a regular basis, but the floor is very high for Adam. So I look at that and I say, look, the floor is really high. At worst, he finishes top 20, top 30, but at best, he can give this thing a run again. Sure. And he probably knows that window of opportunity is starting to close just a little bit for him. And says, I got to go out there and give it my best, because who knows how many more years I have of coming back to Augusta where I'm a legit candidate to go out and possibly win this golf tournament.
It's crazy. I'll get you out of here on this. I realized I would say coming into last year's Masters with Tiger out, it felt like the biggest story was Bryson, that he'd cracked the code and he dropped it. He said it was a par 67 or 68 or whatever the hell he said. Now he's got a broken hamate bone, or a fracture that happens like baseball players when they get hit. He's got a labrum in his hip. You watched him, I'm sure, a little bit last week. Just the vibe of anyone you talk to. Do you have any expectations for him coming into this? I mean, obviously the Masters, when he was healthy with his new style, kind of owned him. Now he's trying to take a little off, but it's just, it feels like he's in a little bit of no man's land for his own game right now.
This is a second shot golf course. And so Bryson, when he's at his best, when he's 100% healthy and he's playing well, Bryson is a bomb and gouge player. He's the ultimate bomb and gouge player. It's let me hit driver, let me hit some little wedges, and let me make some putts. He's actually a very good putter.
Yeah, he is.
But it's the stuff in between that Bryson doesn't excel at. And so that's the things, those are the things that you need to do well at Augusta National. So even when he's on his game, even when he's completely healthy, this isn't a course that really suits his game. I think when he's something less than 100% and when he's not playing his best, it's even going to be worse for him. So I don't like Bryson whatsoever moving forward. I respect the hell out of the fact that he tried to play through it at the match play, didn't get out of his group. He's going to try to play the Valero Texas Open. We're, again, speaking before that tees off. We're recording early in the week of Texas Open week. So don't know how he's going to wind up playing, but no, I don't like him moving forward for Augusta. It's not just this week, but it's really every year until we see something different from Bryson. I think he's going to be more of a US Open PGA Championship type of player than a Masters type of player.
So enjoy it because it doesn't get any better. Tell us again, you listed off, I know the after the round, you said you and Sleaze on Sirius XM.
Yeah,
Tell Sleaze Middlecoff says what's up. Love that guy. So let us know where we can hear you next week.
Yeah, all over Masters Radio, which is the Sirius XM PGA Tour channel. And then, I'm going to be all over Action Network and Golf Bet as well. And we're going to have so much content. I'm working on it already. Again, we're speaking before the Valero Texas Open even starts. I can tell you that this past Sunday, I even tweeted it. I'm watching the final match of the WGC match play. I'm writing up a preview for the Valero Texas Open, and I'm writing about 8 different previews for the Masters at the same time. I was confusing myself, John. I don't even know what day it is, what week it is anymore, but you're right. I can't wait for this. It's going to be so good. By the way, life hack, if and when you do go to Augusta National, you open up one of those egg salad sandwiches or the pimento cheese sandwiches. You get them to give you a little crispy bacon. You throw the bacon inside those sandwiches, close it back up. There you go. Bacon makes everything better. It makes those sandwiches about 20 times better.
Didn't Dustin say the pimento cheese sandwich is his favorite sandwich on earth?
He did say like sandwiches. When he was asked, like, what's your favorite thing about Augusta? Sandwiches. I'm not far off. I'm right there with you.
What's your over-under number of slam down when you're there throughout the week?
It'll be a lot. It's mostly the egg salad. The egg salad goes down real easy. It's, hey, look, it's eggs. It's morning.
Protein,
you get there at 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. You're like, hey, I want some eggs, So it'll be the egg salad sandwiches will be in, maybe up to the high teens, up to maybe 20 or so, which it seems like a lot over the course of 7 days. Yeah. All right.
I know that they don't allow the patrons to bring in their. Are you allowed to bring in your cell phone as a member of the working media?
I'm going to tell you that not only am I allowed to bring in my cell phone, last year I was doing interviews on the course, and we're a rights holder with Sirius XM, and I've still got the sticker. You can barely read it anymore. I'm showing you on our Zoom call right now. I've got that sticker sort of still on the back of my phone. I was one of, I don't even think many of the members have stickers on their phones, but I was one of very few people who could bring their phone out on the golf course.
Because when that sticker, they can't confiscate it.
Correct.
You could sell that thing you could sell that thing on the black market for a lot of money there. So
I would have lost like my job. I just have to make more money than I'd losing my job. So
no, you don't want to lose the ability to go to the Masters. So that thing's priceless. Thanks, Sobel.
Exactly.
Enjoy the week.
I will try. Thank you.